Good morning and afternoon, global students. I hope that you had a wonderful weekend and are nice and well rested for this fabulous Monday that we're having. Today, I have two goals for us. One, I would love for us to become familiar with Google Sites, which is what you'll be using to turn in your project. And two, I'd like us to begin the geography section. I bet some of you are going to be able to finish that today, but that remains to be seen. Project resources. So firstly, I'm going to show you again how to access information for this project. You can go onto the announcements of the Global Perspectives page on Canvas, or I personally would go to the bottom button and click SDG projects so that it'll bring you to this page. On this page, you can view the SDG project description. I recommend making a copy of this and then putting it to the side on your desktop so that you can view it as you work through today. I also recommend using the PowerPoint that I showed you last Friday as well. So I'm going to bring that over here. Let's try that again. There we go. And now you have those two documents that you can use. This first one, since this is the first time that we're using Google Sites for this project, I suggest always looking at the instructions online so that you can see the most updated version. The one that we gave you in class on Friday is fine, but just remember that it might not have all the instructions that are relevant for the Google Site information, but the content is fine. I'm just going to highlight these two sections because these are the sections that we're going to be using today as we go through how to create or begin creating this project. Alrighty, so the first thing that you want to do is go on to Google Sites. Quite simple. You type in Google Sites, click on this link. It should be the first one that pops up. Press create. I recommend using in new sites because that's what I personally am familiar with. If you would rather do a classic site, works for me. I'm just today going to demonstrate how to use the new sites. The first thing that you want to do is give a name to your project. So let's name it SDG project, and then whatever your last name is. Mine is Houston, so that's the one that I will use. If your last name is something else, do that. The site name is going to be the same thing as the title. Then the page title, since this is your home page, you want it to have something to do with your project. For example, if your project is about achieving gender equality, then I might make my page title Achieving Gender Equality. There we go. And this is a little funky because I'm demonstrating to you how you could use this on your page, so I only have it about a half screen. If you want to see what it would look like, maybe bring the screen out a little more. Okay, you can change the text here. You could make it a heading if you want it to be smaller. You can add more text here by pressing text and press enter. Then you can add some text here. So if my country is Burkina Faso, then I'll write Burkina Faso right here. There you've got your country name as well as your SDG. And look at our instruction sheet. It says title, which we've got, images, which you'll need to include as well on this page, and then student name, which you've got right here at the top. Okay. So let's do the site menu and navigation. You want to include navigation for your Google site that allows the viewer to easily access different sections of the project. And the best way to do that is through creating pages on your website. If you go to the top right here and you press Pages, and you press the Add Page symbol right there, you can create names for your page. You'll notice that the first section is geography, so I recommend creating a page name that says Geography. Done. And voila, there's your geography page. You can play around with the font here. Maybe you want to make it heading. That works for me, whatever works for you, as long as you have that name. You want visual documentation of the crisis. So we might add a page that says visual documentation. That can be an infographic. Or I personally might put a visual documentation on my home screen. On your home screen, if you press this button anywhere on the page, and you press Insert, you press Images, then you can select an image later on to put there. Later on this week, we'll be creating the visual documentation of the crisis, so we can worry about that more when we get there. Let's go back to the Pages section. So if you go back down here, you'll see that you need to include a section about a person of interest or a non-governmental organization, also known as an NGO. Let's pretend that in my project, I'm going to do a non-governmental organization, so I will write NGO. Done. Now I've got a nice little page that says NGO. Another thing that you need is the research paper. So I will add a page that says research paper. Another thing that you need is a reflection page. So guess what we're going to do? Add a reflection page. You also will need a works cited page. And that is it, my friends. So it's up to you how you want to structure it. If you like having those pages up here, that's great. If you're someone who would prefer to have it on the side, you can press this navigational setting, press side navigation, then when your mouse hovers over this, you'll be able to see the different pages here. So I'm going to go back to pages because I don't like that it says reflection page here. I'm just going to edit that to make it say reflection. Now it's nice and pretty. I'm also going to rename the page so that it just says reflection. You can play around with that. Remember, the requirements, if you go back to your instruction sheet, are just that you can see the different sections of the project. So let's go to the geography section. If you press geography here, you press right here, double click, and then you can add text. Here's where you will add text. So this is the text of my geography section. Of course, what you'll actually write is what the text is, and the way that you know what to write is by going on to the instruction sheet. That allows you to see exactly what the criteria are. You need 3 separate maps: a physical map of the nation, a political map of the region, and a world map so that you can see your country with an arrow or highlighted color. For example, if you want to look at the sample sheet that I showed you and you just go back to the SDG intro slideshow that we looked at last Friday, you can click on the link that says student sample and you can see what another student did a couple years ago when they created this project. The physical map of the nation should look like this. You should be able to see some of the physical features of that geographical area. The political map shows who shows how they organized it. And then the world map, this is what it should look like. I personally would just go on to Google Images. And here I would type in the name of my country. So let's look up physical map of, let's pretend you're doing Ethiopia. Then you can see here, it's got a nice little physical map of Ethiopia. You'll want to remember where you took this image from. So I personally would highlight that URL, copy it, and then paste it into the Works Cited page. Double click, text, and there we have it. We'll be spending some more time on how to actually format the Works Cited page, but for now, I suggest having a list of the URLs that you used so that you can go back and edit them later. Let's go back to our site. Now, when you're looking at resources, this is the last part that I'm going to show you. Remember on Friday I told you that you could look at the different information that the library gave you? Well, that information is on the PowerPoint slide that we showed you. So if you press that link, you can look at what Mr. Fratt has shown you. If you go to the database subscriptions, you can have all this information at your fingertips to look up what you need to include in your geography section. I recommend starting at ABC Clio. The username and password is right there. It is University Trojans. And the password is students. If you forget the password like I just did, you just click on that link again. And you've got students right there. There we go. So, let's pretend that we are doing Ethiopia, or really any country in North Africa. So let's find Africa. Alright, let's do Sub-Saharan Africa. Works for me. Ethiopia. Look here, you've got all this information about Ethiopia. You can look at the geography, landforms, climate, natural resources and agriculture, environment. You can look at history and issues. I suggest skimming this and trying to gather information to include. You have the whole rest of the class period to work on this. Remember, you can look at the information sheet to see what you need. So let's see, in one paragraph we need the geography of our nation, including regional differences. We need the how does it contribute to our goals crisis. Oh my goodness, I don't know how to do that. What am I going to do, Miss Houston? Here's what you do. Let's go to the student sample and see what this student did. If you scroll down to the geography paragraph, you can have a nice little model. So their topic was achieving universal primary education. So let's scroll down and see how the geography of their country, which is Burkina Faso, how did that contribute to it? Let's just look at one of these sentences. The country's poverty rates and underdevelopment contribute to the lack of education available to Burkinabe children. This person looked up Africa, Burkina Faso, and they knew that because the country did not have a lot of money, and because they were underdeveloped compared to more developed nations like the United States, that contributed to them not having as much education. So they connected their knowledge of the country which they gathered to the information that's required in the instruction sheet. There you have it. Another website that I suggest using is the CIA Factbook. You can really just type in any country. Let's do Mexico. Click here. And here the CIA Factbook has all of this information about Mexico that you can use. Remember that whatever page you use to include it in the Works Cited section on your Google Sites. We'll be continuing with Google Sites later on. I suggest playing with Google Sites for a while and doing some research about your geography section so that you can include that information there. Please use your time wisely today. I would love for you to not have to do a lot of this project at home, but in the end, this is your time that you can choose to waste or to use strategically. Good luck. You have the rest of the class period to work on Google Sites and the geography section. If you finish early, please take a gander at the instruction sheet and see what other parts of the project you can complete. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.